Get up.
Are we clear?
I think so, for now.
Were you bit?
No.
Good. I was.
What? Jesus Christ, Ellie. How many times are you gonna do that joke?
How many times are you gonna fall for that joke, Joel?
All right, you like jokes? I got some jokes for you.
Aren't racist Southerner jokes, are they?
Like hell they are. All right, so town sheriff has 2 Negroes and 9. It's not racist because it ain't about them being black.
You explicitly said Negro.
Just because they were black doesn't mean they had to be.
Tell the joke about the Asians then.
Get down.
Duh.
You have any ammo?
Just this.
Great, I'll fix some.
I see him. He's about 50 yards to the left. I'm gonna take a shot.
Nah. I got this.
Yeah, bring a bat to a gunfight. Good idea, Joel. Where is he?
Ellie!
Cut! Okay, let's get the stunt double in there.
Go ahead.
Cut! You got great eyes, man, you know that?
Thanks. You all right?
It's racist, Joel. Let it go.
So I told you to stay hidden.
Staying hidden is what got me caught.
You're right. Sorry. You handled yourself well. If you hadn't fought back, you probably would have killed him.
I'm a lesbian.
Okay. Is that relevant?
Hey everybody, it's Jackal, and welcome back to Jack All About Gaming. Now, up until this point, we've only covered a bunch of JRPGs on the Wii, but this next game, The Last of Us, is Naughty Dog's take on a post-apocalyptic third-person shooter, which is basically the same thing. Approaching this video was difficult because the point of Jack All is to basically ask a question that I think is crucial to understanding something about the game. There are so many reviews out there, and people like Matthew Matosis have already done outstanding analyses of the game. So I was trying to think about what I could say that hasn't already been said. Now, since Last of Us is so cinematic, I decided the best thing to do would be to approach it from that angle and just kind of explore what it is about Last of Us that makes those cinematics work so well. And since finally I'm playing a game that other people have actually played, you're not going to stare at me the whole time. For example,
I'm Colby. I'm Lord Jackal's roommate.
Hi, I'm Tyler, and I guess, in a sense, I played Last of Us. Yeah.
I'm Miles. I played Last of Us for something around 3 or 4 hours, which pretty much makes me totally qualified.
I'm Chris. I've been friends with Lord Jackal for about 23 years now. After spending ages trying to figure out how to talk about this game, I decided the best thing to do would be to just talk to the people I know who affected it and had a reaction to it. So this video is a bunch of unscripted interviews, and we're going to be approaching it as people who have played the game, talking to other people who have played the game. So there are going to be a lot of spoilers. So let's step into Naughty Dog's world and learn Jack All about The Last of Us.
When Last of Us was in development, I was reading some articles about it. They were saying some things about artificial intelligence on the rise, and I was like, I don't really care about that. But it looked like a fun survival horror game.
Because I'm a huge fan of the like post-apocalyptic dystopian sort of thing. So seeing this older man and like this girl who could have been his child, I knew nothing about the game, wandering through obviously derelict city, like grabbed me immediately. I'm also a huge fan of zombies. Huge fan. So when I heard it was something like that, I was very curious about it. I wanted to see what they were going to do that would be different or new to bring to the table in a genre or subgenre that has been done to death.
I actually was really hesitant to play Last of Us. am generally really skeptical of newer gritty games, and I'm not really a zombie or a shooter person.
So when it finally came out, I hated my life and needed something to distract me, so I thought I'll buy this and I'll see how it is.
And it wasn't until Colby got back and he couldn't stop talking about Last of Us that I was like, okay, alright, I'll play it.
And it was actually the first game, probably since Mass Effect or Infamous 2, that I really enjoyed. And Last of Us kind of restored my faith in the industry. I was hoping it would set a new standard.
I started actually like blocking out time to play it, which is something I don't really do very often anymore. I kept wanting to see what would happen.
I love this game.
The use of cutscenes in games has been a highly debated topic for years now. Oftentimes, games are mocked for having cutscenes. However, Last of Us, which billed itself from the beginning as a cinematic experience, was actually praised for its cutscenes a lot of the time. I think it was the first time I've had a response to a game the same way that I've had a response to one of my favorite movies, something like The Life Aquatic or any of my other just favorite movies. Which is funny, because we used to make fun of cinematics in games a lot.
I've grown up with games since like the Genesis, Super Nintendo era. So plot, cinematics in games, it's not been something that I've always really valued.
I love the Metal Gear Solid series, but I also make fun of it for its insane cutscene indulgence. So it was really interesting to actually find myself pulled into a game by its cinematics.
Like when a cutscene happened and I knew it was going to be like, oh, these people are going to talk more. Like, I want to hear these people talk more.
Cutscenes started to feel like a reward for getting through the more difficult parts of the game, as opposed to like, all right, I get it. Can I just play the game now?
The first time I saw Last of Us, I was actually at a barcade in Oregon with Tyler. And so I watched a guy play through like the first 5 minutes of Last of Us. And I was like, you're just walking around as a little girl? Okay, whatever. But then when I started playing it, it was really haunting.
You look at the way the game starts, and you're kind of put into this mundane sort of reality.
Sarah and Joel, just in their house. It's his birthday. And they just have a little short conversation. But it's very real, and you just see that you just see that this is just this really, really close father and daughter, and it's just a really nice relationship.
Get the sense that the game is gonna take some dark turn really quickly, because it's really... Nobody makes a game about like real life. You don't make a game where you file taxes and go to community college. When somebody's doing taxes like that, they're doing taxes that are also in hell. Like they're in hell, they're on fire, and they have to finish their taxes to get out of hell. Like that's the movie, or that's the game. It's not so simple as, well, no, you gotta do it or else you're gonna get audited, and that's bad. So
it's already kind of scary. You're in the house alone. There's just some flickering lights, and you're wondering what's going on. You're not sure what's going to happen next. And he just comes in through the door. He's slamming the door shut, and somebody's banging his head against the window. And he goes for the gun, and you're just going for it. You climb into the car, and you can look around and see what's happening. This isn't just happening. It kind of is just happening in cutscene. You're on rails. But you can decide to look and watch what's happening. You're not just seeing what the game has decided they want you to see.
Because you're taking everything in through her eyes, which is a lot more terrifying than being like this guy who happens to be a gruff badass.
And then you come out of the car and you're playing as Joel, and you're running through the city. His brother's trying to protect you. At the very end of the scene, if you haven't played the game already, this happens right at the beginning. I actually cried, and I cry at movies, I cry at books, but even a couple of video games I have, but never have I ever cried within the first 20 minutes of anything until Last of Us.
There are so many games that try to start off these huge epic storylines with somebody losing someone, like God of War, it's like, oh, he killed his family. However cool those backstories are, they very rarely actually hit home. They don't usually get like a guttural response out of the player, but Last of Us did that. And I think the way they pulled it off was by getting you attached to a character within 10 minutes.
there's a lot of games where you have cutscenes of giant, earth-shattering proportions or big like. There's supposed to be these big epic things, whereas like a lot of the cutscenes in Last of Us, it's just like these small, like it's very intimate moments. It's supposed to affect you. It's like more personal to these people as opposed to broad, big, earth-changing things.
You know, he's not screaming up at the heavens, full of rage. It's nothing played up on a massive scale. It's this father lamenting his daughter. His brother's there, and it's very real, and it's very subdued, and it's very intimate, and it's between just these three people. Well, two people. Two people.
I think that's probably one of the reasons the motion capture was so effective. It gave real human performances for them, which is what they needed if they were going to pull this off.
They took this very seriously. It was treated like an actual film. The director was he had a very good idea of what he wanted to see. He was very passionate about it. The actors were very much into it. Everybody really wanted the cinematics to work, and they freaking went and did it.
And a lot of people go one way and say, well, it should be more about the gameplay. It's like, yeah, that's true. You should have a fun time playing it, but there should be something rewarding. I think a story is rewarding, gameplay is fun.
While the greatest success of The Last of Us is in its storytelling, it is a video game. No matter how good the writing is, it all falls apart if the gameplay doesn't hold up. While it has some issues, Naughty Dog found a great way to bring the player into the story through its gameplay.
I'm not known for being the best gamer. I'm in fact known for being innovatively bad at games. I was a little worried when I first saw someone playing it that I wouldn't be I wouldn't be able to get into it because I would be terrible at it. I'm not saying that I wasn't, but I was able to get into it in spite of me not being the best. And they had a great ramping up as they were teaching you to teach you these skills, so it was good.
It really comes up naturally, and that's a good thing. Because again, in story-wise, they bring it up as a story. They're not just bringing it up, oh, here's how you play the game. It's like they're making it something that actually needs to happen. The character is in a dire situation where they have to do something like this.
I like that there are a few different ways to play, and if you look at your layout and pay attention, there's usually it'll help you figure out ways to do things. It's not just gonna throw you in a room and be there's a way to solve this, but we're not gonna help. It'll be oh, it makes sense for me to go here and go here, and then it turns out those are the best places for cover, which I thought was nice.
Different interactions at different points will happen, certain things oh, well, I snuck over here the first time I tried it, and I did really well. Let's try to do it the way they want me to do it and just fight this guy head on. It's oh, well, that was a lot harder.
But it is very stressful, the gameplay, which is great for getting you involved. But there are times when I had time to pick up a game and I was something other than Last of Us right now. I don't want to get stressed out.
It doesn't matter how cool the combat is if all you're experiencing is that cool combat, because then it's not memorable. With all the shooters I played through, even something like Gears of War, where I actually enjoy Gears of War, but I don't remember that many specific encounters. I don't remember the layout of the map and where people were and what specifically happened to set that apart. Because for the most part, the combat is the combat. What makes Last of Us memorable is that every encounter actually matters. A lot of it has to do with the pacing. You're not fighting all the time. Generally, you kill a lot less people and zombies in Last of Us than a lot of other games. And what's really cool about that is that it makes those moments matter more. I can remember so many specific fights. When Ellie gets the gun for the first time, and you drop down, and this is one of those times where they do throw just a bunch of guys at you. That's a memorable sequence for me. Another sequence with the sniper, where a sniper is pinned down most of your crew. You're with Sam and Henry at this time, and you're flanking around the side to try and get to the sniper.
I see you!
That's a different scenario.
I really liked playing as Ellie. That was an exciting part for me. You're taken out of Joel, you lose all his power, and you come to the boss fight with David. I thought all the environments in Wyoming were stunning. All the environments in this game were pretty incredible, but seeing Wyoming was nice. And when you get to whatever that final place was where the giraffes are going through the city, like they came out of the zoo and the giraffes are just hanging out.
There's so many sequences that differentiate themselves, but they also just all matter because they're all difficult, and how you get through them is actually important. There are very few other games that have that have this much weight behind the combat. The greatest weapon Naughty Dog had when putting The Last of Us together was an incredible understanding of what makes a survival horror game work. The survival elements in play are incredibly fair, but punishing. To help the player sympathize with Joel and Ellie, the game was just as brutal as the story.
The first thing about Last of Us I remember was how much weight the items actually had.
It was a great way to add to the stress. The sparsity of all the items made me really, really careful about what items I used.
I remember the first time I picked up a brick or a glass bottle, I was actually concerned about throwing this piece of trash. I was like, I don't know when the next one's gonna come.
It also helped that you had limited bullets, so like you weren't sitting there trying to be like, oh god, I'm gonna find out where I'm gonna find him and I'm gonna shoot him.
Sometimes to the point of like me doing a chunk of mission 3 or 4 times because I'm just unwilling to fire a shot, or I'm unwilling to use my shiv.
Distracting enemies so I wouldn't have to use the ammo in the first place this was the only game where that was effective. I felt like there are so many games like Far Cry or other stuff where you have that option, or Metal Gear Solid. This was the only game where I felt like it mattered.
But there was specifically a moment where it's part where you're playing as Ellie, and you and David are trapped in this building in an onslaught of every kind of zombie imaginable. And I hadn't been the best at conserving my resources up to that point, and I was feeling it.
Besides Resident Evil 1, this was the only game where I was really concerned about not having enough items, where the survival part actually came into the survival for me. So I was hooked on the gameplay, like, probably immediately. Like, as soon as I ran into clickers for the first time, I was 100% sold.
I would actually feel worn out after playing Last of Us for a while, because it really did feel like every move that I made mattered a lot, and it made it really difficult. Not because it's unfair or badly designed, but it's just like, we're testing you the entire time. You could not just sit back and coast through it at any point. A crucial element of both the game's story and survival elements was the nature of the zombie infection. Miles, our resident zombie enthusiast, will handle this one himself.
A lot of my favorite zombie literature, because a lot of the zombie stuff I've done has been read, that really stands out to me is the more realistic stuff. I don't like voodoo zombies or specialty zombies very much. What I liked about Last of Us is that it did feel very real. Making the virus fungal, I thought, was a great choice, because it's not one we've seen in video games ever that I can recall. It made interesting game mechanics like the spores, which are airborne, so they're more dangerous than simple bites. But they're also visible, so they're not just like the end-all be-all. Whereas like a lot of zombie viruses, if they were airborne, everyone would just be turned already. Or there have been airborne zombie viruses where everyone's infected, but they don't turn until they're killed. So literally anyone who dies will be a zombie, and I think that's convenient for writers, whereas this was more interesting. They were able to have their like special zombies with their clickers, and it was for the progression of the fungal condition, which made sense, as opposed to like Left 4 Dead, which is like, and these zombies are special because of science. I thought that was always kind of bullshitty. Like, you could say there are different strains of the virus that would affect people differently, but to have it specifically give certain people this exact same set of abilities is silly. Whereas having the fungal thing like progress into clickers made sense.
However, not everything in the game was perfect. There were some who felt the gameplay didn't hold up, and the artificial intelligence was the most common target. While the game had fantastic atmosphere, the immersion was often ruined by having an ally run past enemies in the middle of a stealth section with no response.
Because they had said that they were going to have a really advanced AI that like would react differently than any other AI has ever reacted before, and then it was not that way at all.
there have been a lot of games that tried with artificial intelligence before. Resident Evil 4 is a big one with Ashley, where you have to escort these people through the game, and they just get in the way. I think it's way preferable to have them running around the map doing whatever they want and not interfering with the gameplay while they do it, than to have to constantly just babysit them the entire way. Because they don't actually trigger an enemy themselves. If you, as Joel, screw up, they will fight and protect you. But if they're just running around the map, they're not going to trigger the clickers. They're not going to, alert a stalker. They just help when things go bad, and they're there to talk to when there's no enemies. And again, it's not perfect, but I think it's better than a lot of things we have.
Another common complaint was that the non-combat portions of the game were too dull, filled with so-called puzzles that were incredibly easy to solve.
I really liked the design of the world and the exploration of it, but a lot of the times where you got to like walk around and it wasn't stressful, they had the like little puzzles.
The puzzle segments could not really be called puzzle segments.
Find this ladder, put this board here, do this sort of thing, which wasn't like super exciting. It was realistic. I was looking around the world, I'm like, yeah, they would need these things to get around in this city that's falling apart. So it was realistic in that point. I liked that. I liked that they did have parts where you can just like sort of look around their world, even though it is kind of a narrative all the way.
When you're playing on the harder difficulties, it gets really stressful trying to get past the clickers, trying to conserve ammo, and being like, oh my god, I'm gonna get killed, and finally getting through and just having like a minute. They aren't really puzzles, but when you play on harder difficulties, they're a nice break at least.
What that does, that tells you, like, you're in a safe area right now, but when you put that ladder down and you leave this area, you're probably going to be heading into another fight. You're going into another, like, intense struggle. You're going to have to survive again, more or less.
The time where I like fell in love with the game is I was walking around this area in one of the times where it wasn't combat, and you walked into a bus because I just wanted to see if I could walk in the bus, and I could. And in the back there was a comic, and it started this little dialogue between Joel and Ellie, and I was sitting there realizing I could have missed that. Like I could have like completely missed this little like part of their relationship blossoming, but I didn't because I explored, and I thought that was excellent. I love that they took time to put things in their world that were worth getting. It wasn't just like, oh, you found a comic. If you collect all those, then you'll have collected all those. And some number might get to 100, which is fine, but not something I'm into. Like, I've never played a game just to complete it. Whereas, like, this is like, I need to get every one of those comics because I want to hear everything Joel and Ellie say to each other because I was invested, I was attached. And that's super cool.
With a gameplay system that puts players on edge and puts the struggles of the character into the player's hands, the success of the story relies on how well those characters are written. And this is where The Last of Us truly stands out.
The thing that grabbed me right away was the relationships of the characters. Like all the people that you actually talk to, I thought they did a good job with. I didn't always like them, but I wasn't always supposed to.
The characters are just flat out some of the most fleshed out characters I've played in a game. One of the big pitfalls of writing characters that Last of Us really gets out of is just doing everything through exposition.
For their story, they realized, oh yeah, in writing, characters that know each other don't have to talk about how they know each other. You know, exposition that serves no other purpose than telling the audience, yeah, this is a rich story that I've developed. I think it's a writing problem. I think it's always just kind of there.
Metal Gear Solid 4, and the series as a whole, really, has this horrible habit of just giving you tons of backstory about the characters, which isn't necessarily bad, and it's great to have backstory there. Make backstory optional. You know, make it something that you can find off the beaten path if you're really into it, or something you can read in like the menu or something.
That's not only something that video games get wrong, I think that's also something that just like movies sometimes get wrong, is that, you know, you don't have to reveal information right away. You know, there is a beauty in not knowing. Your audience being curious is a good thing.
But there's a lot of game devs who make the mistake of backstory, meaning character development. But it's more that backstory sets up your character development, and it's not really important that the audience knows it. It's important for the developer to know it, for the writer to know it. But actual character development is something that we can see happen.
That's what The Last of Us did really well, is that they thought about their characters, and they may have really developed what their past was, but it didn't matter as much as what their present was.
Almost all the growth that happens between these characters is something that you see, or at least you see the reasons why it happens. All the backstory that we needed for Joel is something that you play in the first 10 minutes. You get to experience that, and you get to see it actively happen.
And I think that's kind of how they accomplished that, is that they allowed these characters to exist in this world.
With characters who felt not only deep, but real, everything was in place for Naughty Dog to effectively tell their story. However, every story needs to have a point, or a central theme, a question or point of focus that guides the narrative. So what was The Last of Us really about?
At the surface, the game is about survival. It's about doing what you have to do to keep going, to make it one more day, just to see another sunrise. And then as we get deeper in the game, it's about why we want to survive. It's about forming relationships. It's about being in love with people, even knowing that someone will die, or knowing that you might be separated, or knowing that, you know, any horrible thing could happen. It's about valuing the time you had. And a really important part, I feel like, with modern video games wanting to be so cinematic is they need to find a way to make the goals of the story and the goals that the player wants to achieve, they need to make those work with each other. And these characters' survival and seeing them through to the end was something I actually wanted as a player. And there have been games that have done that, but they're very few. They're few and far between, and I think Last of Us did it very well. I don't think they've perfected it yet, but I think they came a long way.
I think the best thing about The Last of Us's theming is how well each of the characters embodies like a different element of that. Joel is surviving through just the loss of his daughter and of Tess and his relationship with his brother and just everything. Like to the point where he hardens himself to survive, where he stops feeling to survive.
I really liked Joel's character. He's like your old Western hero, kind of. He's the, like, your gruff, cut-off man's man cowboy, but he definitely has these scars.
I don't think you really find out what happened to his wife. There's some romantic sexual tension with Tess after his only daughter died. For obvious reasons, both characters are so afraid to allow themselves to love or care about each other, or at least admit that they do.
He definitely has these emotions, but just doesn't always see the point in sharing them, especially not at first. It's something that I've always like found fascinating. It's something because I feel like it is real. I feel like there are specifically a lot of men out there who just like have trouble seeing the point in sharing how they're feeling at the moment.
He kind of tries to be a Texas badass sometimes, and you know, sometimes he even succeeds, but he can't save Tess. He can't save Sam. He can't even save Ellie without damning the entire world. Joel and Ellie's relationship was kind of the foundation for the entire plot of the game. You really feel Joel's frustration when he finds out that his objective is to transport her, and he keeps her around as a duty to Tess.
Our luck had to run out sooner or later.
You going on?
No, don't! Don't touch me.
Holy shit. She's infected.
Tess's last stand is actually probably one of my favorite parts of the game, just because I think it's a really huge catalyst for helping change Joel. It would have been so easy for Tess to have just asked them to kill her so she wouldn't have to deal with it, to be worried about herself. But her entire focus is on helping Joel and Ellie survive.
This was 3 weeks. I was bitten an hour ago, and it's already worse. This is fucking real, Joel. You've got to get this girl to Tommy's.
Prioritizing the survival of others over her own well-being, which is something that her and Joel kind of swore against.
I think if he didn't have Ellie, he wouldn't be an interesting character, because Ellie is just so... She is just so charming and so much a great character that, like, Joel is forced to come out of himself and go back to being the loving father that he used to be. You play as Joel for the vast majority of the game, and you can see it as you're walking around. As he's walking around town, you can see him start to come out of himself. He starts to enjoy life again. I think it's a very relatable relationship. I think you find yourself rooting for these characters very quickly. And it's exciting to see both of them come into themselves and come together, with Ellie being Joel's surrogate daughter and Joel being kind of an adoptive father for Ellie. I think it's very well done writing-wise. My only complaint is I would want to see into Ellie's mind more. She's very young, and you can tell that she probably doesn't have her emotions totally figured out, because she is a 14-year-old girl. She's still growing up, and you don't really see how she feels about Joel 100%. She starts the game not trusting Joel. She's every bit as frustrated with him. She'd rather just be going with the Firefly, who treated her like a daughter. We find out she's already pretty strong. Like I have no doubt that Ellie could kick my ass, and I'm twice her size. She doesn't take crap from anyone. She's very much a child who has been forced to be an adult. And if you really think about it, there's very few things in this world that are sadder than that. Even when she's stabbing people in the hand and like cussing at them, like you're still like, I just want to love you back into being a child, if depending on what place you are in your life.
She had the healthy dose of snark people are writing teenagers with these days.
Who the fuck is this punk and what's she doing here?
I am none of your goddamn business, and we're here because you owe Joel some favors. And you can start by taking these off.
She was a very young person with something tied, and I thought she behaved that way.
One of the most moving scenes for me, it goes back to this idea that she is a child who's been forced to be an adult. When you fight David, and she finally has stabbed him enough that he collapses, and she takes the machete from him, and she's just hacking him into pieces, and she's crying and she's screaming in the burning building. She's so terrified. And Joel finally comes to her and he hugs her, and she breaks down in his arms, and she comes back and she makes a statement about a dream she had. She so obviously has post-traumatic stress disorder. She just has to carry this weight for the entire time. I think they nailed the arc. I think they understood this, like these absolutely insane by our era, by a lot of people who can afford to play Last of Us on their PS3s. This unfathomable circumstances. I think they really captured that.
The game does just such a good job of exploring like virtually anything and everything that humans will do to survive, and why. And obviously the main one they focus on is, the bonds between two people, but there's so much else explored. The way that Tommy goes almost the exact opposite route of Joel and makes his survival all about getting a community of people together and finding a way to protect them. The Fireflies, who are completely devoted to the survival of the entire race, as opposed to the survival of the individuals. Bill, who has gotten so fixed on surviving after the death of his partner that he is completely withdrawn from society.
Someone who's been alone for a while, and specifically at one point they allude to him, he had a partner, and that partner ended up I thought was great because it explained why he was kind of crazy, and he was, and I think that was a great choice, because I think a lot of people would be in that situation.
And you've got Sam and Henry.
They were the ones that I wanted to survive the most, and a little part of me died when Henry shot himself after Sam turned.
That's just one of the most heartbreaking parts in the game, when Sam turns and Henry has to finish him off, and how he literally just doesn't see the point in surviving anymore. Henry's entire reason for survival was to make sure that Sam survived. Even in a twisted way, David is about survival. Survival at the expense of anyone and anybody else. And in a relatively short game, I mean, granted, it's way longer than most movies, they managed to explore quite a bit. There are a couple things that I kind of wish were added. There are months that are skipped in between some of the chapters where we really want to see those, just because we want to see that relationship develop. Critics tend to minimalize The Last of Us by saying it's cliched, something that's been seen 1,000 times in zombie media. While there are certainly several plot devices and character types that we've seen before, what made Naughty Dog's games so great was how well they used these plots and characters to explore their themes. The game isn't about the zombies, it's about what humans will do in extreme life and death scenarios. This is most evident in the game's ending. After taking Ellie to the Fireflies, Joel learns that if they remove her brain, they may be able to stop the cordyceps from infecting anybody else.
What do you mean, surgery?
The doctors tell me the cordyceps, the growth inside her, has somehow mutated. It's why she's immune. Once they remove it, they'll be able to reverse engineer a vaccine.
With Ellie's life on the line, he kills the Fireflies and runs, dooming mankind.
The ending has a lot of controversy. I know a lot of people who didn't like it. They didn't like that it was ambiguous. I think you should read 1984. The ending of that it's not a happy ending, and it's incredibly unsatisfying, and it's infuriating, but it's the point of the story. It's the same principle in Last of Us. There isn't a completely satisfying ending for the story because they just have to go on. I don't think the ending was bad at all. I think it was a perfect ending for this game.
I'm still waiting for my turn.
Ellie.
Her name was Riley, and she was the first to die. And then it was Tess. And then Sam.
None of that is on you.
You don't understand.
I struggled for a long time with surviving.
You feel the strength of their relationship, but you also feel just like the strain of everything these guys have had to experience. You feel just like the psychological toll that this trip has taken on Ellie. How many just terrible things she's had to experience. Everything that Joel has lost and how afraid and kind of pathetic he is that he would lie this badly.
He's kind of a tragic hero. His flaw is that he can't give Ellie up. They really had an opportunity to stop the cordyceps, whether it was a vaccine or a cure or just get closer to it. He won't give Ellie up, and because of that, he became the villain. And I think that's another reason that this ending, despite the complaints, is actually works so well.
He's so focused on surviving because he has to. And then ultimately through Ellie, he figures out why he wants to survive. And I think honestly, losing Sarah was such a huge shock to him that he had to close himself off in order to survive, that he just would not have made it otherwise. If he had lost Ellie, he would have done the same thing Henry did.
You just come after her.
I think she knows that he's lying to her. I have a really hard time believing that she would ask those questions, that she'd be at that point without at least having a very strong suspicion that something went down that he is hiding from her. It embodies everything about that world and everything about these characters and everything the game has been building up to. It's the best ending to a game that I've played, and it's one of the better endings of anything that I can think of.
I will always remember that. No matter how many games I play, no matter how many years it's been since I played Last of Us, I will always remember that image of Ellie going, okay, and it cuts to the credits.
You keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
At the end of the day, The Last of Us is a game that I have no problem defending as art. It may not be for everyone, but coming from somebody who's not a huge fan of this genre, it's really hard to deny the fantastic work that Naughty Dog did. Hopefully developers will look at this game and realize just how well a story can be told. That's all for this episode, guys. As you can tell, Last of Us is a game that I have a lot of respect for, and if I could personally thank Naughty Dog for making it, I would. It's not without its flaws. The AI can break immersion, and there are a couple things that could go a little smoother. But I feel like all of those problems would have been fine in any other game, and Last of Us is just held to a higher standard because of how well done everything else was. Now that Naughty Dog has shown that they can write such a great story and build it around such a solid game, I can't wait to see what they do in the future when technology has advanced even more. I want to thank Colby, Miles, and Tyler for helping out with this. It was great to have them on the show in a bigger way. If you haven't watched Grounded, it's free on Amazon. Please go see it. It's a fantastic documentary. You learn so much, not just about game design, but just everything. It's such a solid documentary. Much more solid than this one. See you later, guys. This was the video that I worked so hard on it didn't even have a script. but there are some people who have made some videos that I think are completely fantastic. You should go check them out. There's Matthew Matosis, who did an overall just analysis of the game that is absolutely fantastic. There's Good Blood, a fairly new YouTuber who does this fantastic video on the narrative. Like it's really, just go watch it. It's way better than this. And then Hyperbit Hero. If you're curious about the artificial intelligence, Hyperbit Hero did a video about the whole AI debacle, where they promised something with the AI that they didn't really deliver on. It's very informative, illustrates the issue very well. If you want to see more of our videos, here's another one of our Jackalls, another of the shorter Jackalbite videos I did on just kind of like smaller game design issues. And here's Cyberpunch, one of my film things, a no-budget short film I made with some friends a couple of years ago that is terrible and hilarious because it's bad. Go watch it.